What's next for Doug Ford's government? Last week was a tumultuous one in provincial politics. A massive cabinet shuffle, a controversy, and the sudden resignation of the Premier's chief of staff. The politics behind the politics are fascinating. Ultimately, the question, though, is will Doug Ford's government change?
Here is who we listened to. We listened to the people. Doug Ford listened to the people.
That was a euphoric Dean French the night Doug Ford was elected. He became Ford's chief of staff and was the man behind the throne who seemed to wield as much power as the Premier himself. Dean French was the person behind the repeated PC standing ovations in the legislature.
Are you told to clap?
He was also the man behind staffers clapping to drown out media questions. And he was heavily involved in the failed attempt to get Ron Taverner, a close friend of the Premier, appointed OPP commissioner. French, who was accused of running Queen's Park with an iron fist, seemed untouchable until he pushed through two controversial appointments on the very day of a massive cabinet shuffle last week. One of them, a 26-year-old lacrosse friend of his son's, for a $165,000 job in New York. The other, his wife's second cousin. The very next day, the Premier rescinded the appointments and French resigned. When asked if Doug Ford knew about the appointments, a government source from the Premier's office would only say, quote, when he was made aware of certain biographical information, he acted decisively.
The Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford!
After being pummeled in the polls and booed in public 3 times, the shuffle was an attempt to reset the government. But it's going to take more than a shuffle to win back voter support. Senior government sources in the Premier's office acknowledged to City News today there needs to be a change in tone and say it's already taking place. And yet the Premier's speech at Ford Fest did not seem to reflect that.
We know that when they come at us, you are with us, and that is all that matters. Not the downtown insiders, not the media who criticize us at every single step. I call them the media party. You are the only ones that matter to us. You are the only ones that we answer to.
You're a conservative strategist. What advice would you give to Doug Ford now?
I think it's take these next 3 or 4 months. I think he's done the right thing, by the way. Shuttered this place for a couple of months, regroup, reset, shuffle the cabinet, give some time for people to get back on and learn their portfolios and focus relentlessly on jobs and economic growth. Because I think that's what people have hired him for, and that's what I think he is his strongest suit.
The person who becomes Doug Ford's new chief of staff could play a big role in changing the mood at Queen's Park. Dean French is a tough fighter, ready for battle, just like Doug Ford. The next chief of staff could bring some more balance and tone things down. We'll also likely see less of the Premier over the summer. When I asked about that, the senior sources in his office told me the Premier does not need to be front and center every day. Keeping him out of the spotlight would be good both for him and Conservative leader Andrew Scheer, who is preparing for a federal election.